Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Karlan. Welcome to our first inaugural show called What's Up? What? Hey, Doc. Sorry, didn't even know the name of my show. Hey, Doc, what's new in plant-based medicine? I'm so happy to have my dear friend and one of my tremendous cardiologist mentors, Dr. Joel Kahn. He is coming from Michigan, from his office in Michigan, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things because heart disease is really preventable and reversible in most cases. So Dr. Kahn, let's start off with telling us a little bit about your plant-based story. How did you get into this lifestyle, and how long have you been doing this?
Did you say what's up, Doc?
I started to say what's up, Doc.
What's up, Doc? I think we should all pause for a minute and say, that's awesome. But thank you. Yeah, I'm standing in my office in suburban Detroit, a little casual here on Dress Down Friday, Pandemic Friday. We're still a lockdown state. But, I have this, every time I tell this story, people cry. You ready for that, Lisa?
I don't want to cry on camera, but go for it.
It's a story of, tremendous overcoming of illness and challenges. And people say, oh, my God, that inspired me. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's a story, and it's my story of why I've been plant-based for 43 years of the 61 years I've been on this planet, which means something happened at age 18. And that's exactly the story. So I grew up in a traditional kosher home. Some of you will know that means we didn't bring in pork. We didn't have cheeseburgers. It was just a routine thing we did, and I liked it. And it honored my parents and my grandparents. And when I showed up the first day in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, 1977, not exactly the peak hippie years, but still a bit of a tie-dyed, funky town. I looked around the cafeteria knowing I wanted to maintain these, and honor these rules and history that had been part of my upbringing. And there was a gray piece of roast beef, and there was a brown piece of hamburger. There was an amazing salad bar. That was a true story. It's just amazing, even in the day. And that's what I ate. And that's what I ate the next morning for breakfast, and the next day for lunch, and the next day for dinner, and the third day and the fourth day. I happened to have a good friend with me, my girlfriend, who had entered nursing school. And I was able to I entered medical school when I was 18 in Ann Arbor. So it was kind of a cool 1-2 punch we had. And she was doing the same thing from the same hometown. And within about a week, we realized this was amazing. We feel great. We had energy. Not that we were ill before. We were young, energetic, but we actually felt better. I think getting dairy out of our life for the first time was a huge benefit. The only, non-dairy drink at the time was soy milk, and it was all through the dorm cafeteria. Very emotional story. I stopped eating fish, chicken, beef, turkey, and such at that time. And then the only other part of the story was that my parents around that time, traditional meat and potato kosher eaters, very good cooking from my mother, went to the Pritikin Center at the time. That was in Santa Monica. They went with some friends, and my mother came back and started making lentil loaves. So I'd come back from freshman year, and the meatloaf had become a lentil loaf. And so I was surrounded by fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, peas, and lentils, the absolute framework of which a plant-based diet is based upon, and never turned back. And it all got solidified. 2 more kind of rivets made me very strong in my commitment to all this. Rivet number 1 was that a book was published in the mid-'80s. I had been eating this way for about 7-8 years, and John Robbins published a book called A Diet for a New America. I hadn't heard of it. I didn't know that John Robbins was the heir to the Baskin-Robbins ice cream fortune and had walked away to become a hippie organic farmer in Vancouver, I believe it was. Of all the things, somebody handed me his book and said, you're going on vacation for a couple of days. You might enjoy reading it. I have no idea who that person was to this day. The book had a profound impact on, again, just cementing my commitment. Because I didn't understand that this diet had significant health benefits. I didn't understand that it had significant environmental and animal rights issues that I wanted to be aware of. I was at that time actually in training to be a cardiologist. Nobody talked nutrition. I was in Dallas, Texas, one of the beef and barbecue centers of the world. So that was a very strong kind of cementing. And the last step was 1990. Now 13 years into, avoiding and not eating all animal products, Dr. Dean Ornish published the famous Lifestyle Heart Trial. And I was already just starting my practice back in the state of Michigan after having been out of state for training. And that's all I needed. I knew the food was good. I knew from John Robbins' book, the food had a major impact worldwide in terms of environment, animal rights, and health. And then I had proof that now as a cardiologist, I could use this diet and teach other patients that they could prevent and reverse heart disease. And voila, 43 years later, I'm not going to be having a beef burger and prime rib tonight for dinner. It's going to be, chickpeas and a pad thai and a gigantic salad with purple cabbage.
That's what a great
Not emotional, but that's my story. That's
and you know what? That's a great story. And for anybody that heard you say you entered medical school at 18, you were in a combined undergraduate medical school program at University of Michigan and Ann Arbor. And I know you won't say this, but I'll say this. You graduated summa cum laude. So that was not only a very challenging program for a very young person to go through that. You basically graduated, was it 6 years total?
Right there. That's
6 years? So
6 years nonstop. You went about 40 weeks a year. You got a short little summer vacation. It was pretty intense, but it was wonderful. And then you
did a residency in internal medicine and cardiology, and then you did a fellowship in interventional cardiology.
And Rambo. I was the guy shooting stents everywhere, right?
Well, because when you took care of patients that were having a heart attack, you got called when they were in the midst of having a heart attack. They were extremely critical. The tension was incredibly high. And here you come in, Dr. Rambo, and tell them what you did. Just give us a quick overview of interventional cardiology.
Well, that was a very common scenario. And I happened to be trained by the professor and cardiologist that was the first in the world to treat a heart attack with an emergency procedure like a balloon or stent. So I was the guy. I had come back to Ann Arbor and then suburban Detroit and kind of changed the practice of medicine around here with a very aggressive approach to heart attacks and heart disease in general. But 11 p.m. started to feel tightness, pressure, sweating, nausea, called 911. About then, it was sometimes possible that the EMS ambulance would actually do an electrocardiogram and transmit it to the emergency room. So we already knew that aunt or uncle of somebody that loved them very much was coming in with a true emergency heart attack situation. Go right to the cath lab, sometimes grab some lab values, grab a blood pressure, but really right to the catheterization lab. If it was not in the middle of the day, 3-4 other people had come in like me, 90 miles an hour, to get there as quick as possible, knowing the quicker you treat a heart attack, the more benefit, the greater survival. And very quickly, scrub. This isn't the first time that we wore masks, gloves, and washed a lot. You get yourself all gowned up, have to put lead on because as a medical treater, you don't want to be exposed to radiation every day. These lead gowns, they weigh so much. They're hard on your back and all. But very quickly, usually through the groin, you numb up, make a poke, zip up through the arteries, hopefully without any problem because of bends and turns, but sometimes it worked. And you'd get to the heart and you'd make a picture. You'd find out which artery was totally blocked by McDonald's and Arby's and burgers and French fries and malts and milkshakes. Find out which artery was all clogged up and go right on in it and just blast everything open with a balloon and stop the heart attack. And 2 minutes after starting, there was a totally different situation. Patient felt better, electrocardiogram felt better, blood flow was restored. It's, the true adrenaline rush of really helping somebody and seeing somebody get better. But it also was when I told them, I've been eating plant-based now for about 15 years. And there's this book by Dr. Dean Ornish called Dr. Ornish's Method of Preventing and Reversing Heart Disease. And later on it became Forks Over Knives and Dr. Esselstyn, whatever I could hit them with. But what an effective time to talk to them about why this happened and what you could do to prevent the next episode. Because anybody that's had a heart attack is much more prone to have a second one, and they may not make it through that one. So come on, tough it up. Throw the lamb chop away and get yourself some tempeh.
So you have a very active practice, and now you're teaching prevention, and you call yourself a preventive cardiologist. And I tell my friends, kind of tongue in cheek, Dr. Kahn could be making tons of money doing interventional cardiology treatment modalities, but he's in his office talking to patients, doing testing. Your motto is test, don't guess. And you want people to prevent, so you don't want them to get to the point that they have the heart attack. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, which is really what you should do as a doctor, prevent. It's about treating the cause. It's not necessarily about treating the heart attack once they have the heart attack, which you can still do. But you are very active on the circuit for lecturing. You've been on The Doctors. You're one of the regular contributors to the television show The Doctors. We'll talk about that in a little while. But you wrote an article.
Surpassed by What's Up, Doc?
Yes.
Hey, Doc.
And you have 7 cardiologist recommended lifestyle hacks to prevent and reverse heart disease. You wrote about that on your blog. You remember that article you wrote? Can we go through those?
I have perfect memory about it.
I love it.
I come prepared.
I love it. So let's go through these lifestyle hacks, because these are things that, how old should you be when you start these lifestyle hacks?
Well, these specifically, one of them should start in childhood. The second one should start in childhood. And so far, I see about 4 of them should start in childhood. So, and actually, just to follow up on that point, I look at it in retrospect, very fortuitous, totally random, that because of this religious diet, I stopped eating animal products at age 18. The more years you have of a high quality diet, even if it isn't completely plant-based, but I'd always recommend completely plant-based, the sooner you stop drinking soda pop, the sooner you stop ordering French fries, the sooner you stop ordering corned beef sandwiches and Reubens and eggs and bacon for breakfast. If that starts in your childhood or your teen years or your early 20s, I mean, it's just going to be multiplied the benefit. If you're 65, it's still time to do that. Because you can see benefit in hours, days, weeks, months, certainly years. But even in hours, you can see the benefit of avoiding the processed food, the calorie-rich, chemical-rich foods that are the American staples. So
on the other side of that coin, is there an age at which somebody should just say, if they're 85, is it too late to start at 85?
No, I don't think so. If somebody's, got good health, or a few health problems, but really wants to be around. Maybe they want to do the George Burns and, make it to 100 with a good sense of humor. Again, the benefits are well known, that within days to a couple weeks, massive transformation in the health of your gut, that special thing we call the microbiome, massive transformation in the way your brain is functioning and cognition. Take out the poisons, put in the prevention. And, you could be 85 and feel better, and you've done a lot. Yeah. You may not bring your arteries back to the youth they had when they were 20, but that isn't necessary to achieve a long and healthy life. 85 is where you should really be concerned about dementia, falling, congestive heart failure, and really a bad quality of life. So a great lifestyle is a real good antidote at any age to prevent a bad quality of life. Okay, number 7.
With the seven cardiologist recommended lifestyle hacks. We love hacks.
Hey, Doc, what are those 7? Here we go. Oh, if I just remembered. So I wrote this article because it's so simple. Step 1, fill your plate full of whole foods of plant origin. I love the term rainbow diet. Eat some white foods like cauliflower. Eat some purple foods like purple cabbage, which is one of my favorite on the planet. Some purple sprouts like purple radish sprouts, or maybe an eggplant. Eat some blues like a blueberry. Oh my God, blueberries are so healthy for your brain, for your heart function. Eat some greens. We all get green foods. Eat some oranges. Could be an orange, could be orange bell pepper, red bell peppers, red watermelon, red strawberries. That whole rainbow idea is so beautiful. Eat a whole food plant diet. Fiber, nutrients, vitamins, boost your immune function, and you get lots of fiber. We love fiber because fiber may be one of the most profound ways to enhance our health and prolong our life. And what don't you get? You don't get animal saturated fat. You get less exposure to hormones and antibiotics and some of the horrible chemicals that particularly fish concentrate in their flesh, like DDT and PCBs. So plants are the best choice for sure. But we do have to learn as a plant community to avoid too much junk food. It's everywhere now, plant-based junk food. And it isn't necessarily going to get us to a healthier point than junk food in general, just another form of junk food. So that's number one. Number two, shocking. Well, let me just step back. How many people, excuse me while my nose itches here, it's, hey, doc, it's a medical show. If your nose itches, just scratch it. Okay, that's the ground rules. But step two, before we get to it, what percentage of the United States eats an adequate serving of fruits and vegetables every day? It's under 5%. And some studies say it's under 1%. It is the health habit that I'm going to mention of these 7 that is least achieved in the United States is eating adequate servings of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. So we have so far to go with the message of plants and plants and plants, plants for snacks, plants for meals, plants, for our children. Number 2, don't smoke. And the numbers there are, it's about 15% of Americans still smoke, and the millennials maybe 20%, sadly, but obviously don't smoke. Keep an optimal body weight, really tough. We know the numbers now that about 40% of Americans are, actually I think it's up to 75% actually if you include overweight and obese. If you're just talking obesity, it's 30 to 40% in many states. And it's not that that's unsightly. It's not shaming. It's on average, excess body weight, decreased memory, greater risk of Alzheimer's, excess body weight, increased risk of diabetes, increased risk of psoriasis, increased risk of sleep apnea, needing to wear the mask. It's associated with real diseases. Number 4, get at least 30 minutes of exercise a day. I'm standing, moving as we're recording this amazing inaugural show, Hey Doc. And that's one way to get in a little extra burn. But, get a treadmill, a bike, take a walk, get a dog, get a cat, just be active. Garden, dance, Zumba, Pilates, water, aerobics, whatever you like. Number 5 was never taught in med school in 1977, but now it's mentioned all the time. Try and get enough sleep. Enough sleep on average is 7 to 8 hours. It's not more manly or more macho to only get 4 hours of sleep. It actually can drop your testosterone and make you more prone to make poor choices about food and alcohol and skip the gym. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I say the best anti-aging pill is your pillow. It's one of my quotes.
Love that. I
love that. I thought it was rather novel too. Just like don't take blue pills, eat blueberries.
Yes.
Okay. Number 6, we'll come back to. Number 7, I actually put on this list, was sweat. There's some interesting data about the value of sweating to detoxify. I prefer to do it in an infrared sauna or a steam sauna. But, one of the things we're trying to grapple with is the exposure we all have to plastics, to air fresheners, to thermal receipts when you go through the coffee shop drive-through. They all are coated with chemicals that quickly get through your skin, or you ingest them or you breathe them. Make your life a industrial chemical light life would be good advice. And just, I know if you're in California, a single, plastic bottle use has been legislated in some areas out of, availability. And even if it is available, don't choose to use single-use plastic bottles. But sweating is a way to get those chemicals out of your body. Infrared sauna is a supercharged way to get them out of your life. And it's just not widely available. I happen to have the luxury of having one in my home, and I use it a lot. Number 7, and the final one, is what you mentioned. I call it test, not guess. You can sleep well, not smoke, eat well, exercise, sweat it out, and protect your environment. You still might have a genetic factor, and we're going to talk about this a little later about lipoprotein little a. There is a very simple way that a man or woman at age 45, 50 can go to the local hospital, get a quick CT scan of their heart called a calcium scan. Test, not guess. Now, you can up the chances you're not going to get heart disease by really following all the American Heart Association recommendations, throwing in a PCRM-based diet for sure. But
that would be the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine.
Yeah, you still might want to be certain that you're not exposing yourself to the risk of the number 1 most common cause of death in the United States, which is cardiovascular disease in men and women. Know that your arteries are clean. It's about a 15-second CT scan. Test, not guess, coronary artery calcium scan. Those are the big 7 here from the Kahn Center for Cardiology.
And you do some other tests. You do a CIMT test. Can you talk about that?
Heart arteries are tricky because they're inside your chest, they're moving, they're small, they're curvy, and they're difficult to image. It turns out this CT scan allows us to see heart arteries in a very easy, safe, and low-cost manner, but it's still one step away from the optimal way, but it's very good. In opposition, your 2 arteries to your brain, called carotid arteries, are perfect. They're big, they're straight, they're right under the skin. So you can do a special ultrasound and find out if you're silently building up plaque. I feel great. It's just like, why do you have a colonoscopy? Why do you get a mammogram? You have no complaints. The doctor convinces you that preventive checkups are worth it. And once in a while, you'll find out some news that you have an early problem. The carotid or the CT scan of the heart is the same philosophy. Wouldn't you rather know early in the game that something's not working for you, your genetics, your diet, your metabolism, or something, and you're developing, early atherosclerosis? So yes, you can do a CIMT, carotid intimal medial thickness. For example, my patients in Los Angeles that I see from a distance go over to Cedars-Sinai, go over to UCLA, and they go get that scan, and we go over the report together.
And I want to let everybody know that you are licensed in how many different states?
4 or 5. Yeah.
California, Michigan.
Yeah. Florida, Georgia, Michigan are the big 3 I see people from. But
so now, when you see telemedicine patients, do they have to be from those states?
If I limit it to nutrition, lifestyle advice, no.
Okay, all right. But people can contact you and
Australia next Monday, all over the place. Yeah, Switzerland, Japan,
That's
all
wonderful.
over.
And then you can send them for these screening tests in their local area. They can get a coronary calcium CT scan, this CIMT test that you just talked about. And right. I want to ask you about the advanced lipid panel, because I actually have a friend who recently told me that her cholesterol is 259 and her LDL cholesterol is about 130. It's quite high. And she eats a whole food, plant-based diet, some vegan junk food. And I said to her, you probably need to have an advanced lipid panel. What would the benefit of having that test be for somebody like my friend?
It could be. It's a little more common, particularly in people that are overweight or pre-diabetic. But it actually could be that 2 people, cholesterol is 220, LDL cholesterol is 130. If you do an advanced lipid profile, one person might actually have a very good mix of particle size, particle number. Some of that cholesterol might be the HDL cholesterol, high density, we still think is largely protective. And they may have a fairly favorable cholesterol evaluation if you do the advanced evaluation, and not need to consider, massive changes, although I'd never recommend vegan junk food. It's still junk. And the other person has a very inflammatory metabolic syndrome, pre-diabetic kind of profile, and they really need to work hard at it. So, it's just that the lab tests that most doctors get on patients are the same lab tests we got in the 1960s and 1970s. Yet there's been scientifically so much of an advance, and the advanced lipid panel, advanced cholesterol panel is inexpensive. It's the same amount of blood, and really any doctor could refer you to get that done.
So this advanced lipid panel, in addition to a CIMT, the coronary calcium screening test, would be great interventions. And then we're going to talk about lipoprotein A. But I want to talk a little bit about I'm going to put this up here, this graphic. There we go.
Whoa.
There you are on the doctors.
And where did you find my bar mitzvah picture?
I was going to put that up, but I decided I'd put up the doctor's one. And actually underneath it says the doctors underneath the banner, but I'm still learning how to do all. There we go.
Joel.
There we go. Joel Kahn, cardiologist. So you have been a regular contributor to the doctors, and you are debating Dr. Gundry. Can you summarize what was going on that day?
Yeah. In early 2017, a book got published by a prominent cardiac surgeon, about 10 years my senior. He also trained in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, but we did not overlap. Developed quite a reputation as a heart surgeon, and then he hit the big time as a celebrity wellness doctor in Palm Springs, Dr. Steven Gundry. And he had written a previous book. It made a splash, not a big one, but he published a book in March of 2017 called The Plant Paradox, where he proposed a theory that he had discovered and developed, that we are getting sick because plants don't want to be eaten. Plants have chemicals in them that fight to protect them, and we suffer and develop poor health and inflammation and heart disease. And he had discovered this theory, and he published a book. And he particularly singled out legumes, peas, beans, and lentils, for being very rich in a compound generally called lectins. He called them liberally killer lectins, 5 raw kidney beans and you will die. He would say this on many media outlets, and the book became a smash hit. I think the book's been translated into more than 30 languages and has sold millions of copies. It launched a vitamin line that he has to combat the problem he identified, that the seeds in a tomato and the seeds in an eggplant and the seeds in a red bell pepper and the lectins in the kidney beans were killing you. And don't eat them, or take extreme measures to prepare them, or buy my vitamin to block them. So I wrote an article online about the plant paradox. I think at one point I called it the plant poopadox, that, really the science was dramatically lacking. Even though he was making a universal recommendation, he had not published any science. Previous scientists had not found this theory to hold any water. In fact, as most people know, beans, peas, lentils, the legume family has, in some studies, been the food group most associated with longevity. There's a famous study in the elderly, and they asked these people in their 90s, what food group do you eat more than any other? The food group they ate more than any other were beans, peas, and lentils. It's a longevity food. So anyways, I got invited on the doctor's show to discuss with the doctors, Travis Stork and Drew Ordone and the others. And they brought Dr. Gundry in live too. We sat next to each other in the studio, and it wasn't a good day for Dr. Gundry. He's a very smart man. He's warm. He looks like Santa Claus. He's a very huge personality, but he had not prepared. I prepared, and I will reveal that the doctors on the show were not very inclined to believe his version that he was telling people. So I got a few minutes to dive in and say my piece. He said his piece, and then Dr. Stork, particularly, just as he will at times, went kind of crazy on Dr. Gundry, deservedly, and we've had a chance to interact a few more times, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to debate me anymore.
That was really great. I'm going to put the link to that episode in the comments a few minutes after this broadcast is over. So if anybody's interested in watching you interact with Dr. Gundry, just click on that link.
Now, I will say, not to defend the doc, he doesn't want you to eat garbage food either. And there are a few foods he'd like you to eat, like an avocado and all. Although in his most recent book, he went after apples like he went after beans in the first book. How can you pick on an apple as anything other than one of the best choices you can ever make for your health? So his message is bad. He's a pretty nice doc. Don't buy his vitamins. There's no reason to.
Right. So you have written now how many books?
6 books, and there's more to come.
And there's more to come. So here's the book you wrote a couple of years ago, The Plant-Based Solution. Tell us a little bit about this book, where people can get it, and then we'll talk about your most recent book, which I have to read. I have not read it yet.
Yeah. So this book is available now in paperback on the big online sellers. It's quite low cost. There is a Kindle version. There's an Audible version, and it's actually been translated into a couple languages, but not 30. But it goes through system by system: heart disease, evidence, and the references; kidney disease, evidence, and the references; lung disease, brain disease, autoimmune disease, for the benefits of a whole food plant diet, featuring whole foods, not junk foods. And then the last half of the book is 75 or so recipes from either my restaurant in Detroit or our kitchen at home. That generally the feedback has been, they're very simple, they're very tasty, they help me make that transition. And I just wanted to create something that people could read in a couple days wasn't really, a month-long endeavor, because that is a roadblock to a lot of people. And, I think it was quite successful, and it was a pleasure working with Sounds True Publishers. They developed a very nice looking cover, all those beautiful berries.
Yes.
But it's a good book.
It is. There we go. The Plant-Based Solution. That's the cover of the book.
Very proud that Dr. Dean Ornish is the quote on the cover, and John Mackey, founder of Whole Foods, wrote the foreword, and actually wrote that about 2 days before he announced that Whole Foods was selling to Amazon. So I don't know how he found the time to actually complete it, but very grateful to him for that.
All right. Well, let's talk about this one. Oh, oops, wrong one. Here we go. There we go. This is your latest book, Lipoprotein A, the Heart's Quiet Killer.
I need to write a thriller novel, because here I've got the word thriller on a cardiology book. Thriller, quiet. It sounds exciting. So it sounds so esoteric, but it's so important. And I appreciate you bringing it up. That book's been out for about 2 months, and it, for the month of March, was the #1 heart book on Amazon every week, every day, which I'm grateful for. Anyways, this is the important message. And I kind of intimated this before. You can avoid smoking, get your fitness, eat your plants, get a good night's sleep, have pretty darn good blood pressure, blood sugar, and weight on the scale. There still could be risk of heart attack, stroke, or other forms of heart disease. We call that residual risk. When you adjust your lifestyle, you dramatically lower the risk, but it doesn't lower to zero. Well, we're learning some of those factors that let you still be at risk. One of them is a form of cholesterol that can be inherited from mom and dad. It's not really dependent on what you eat or what your weight is or what your exercise program is. And that is what the title of the book is. It's a very awkward word, lipoprotein a. It's a blood test that you can ask your doctor for. Hey, next time you check my usual cholesterol or even my advanced cholesterol, would you please order me a lipoprotein a? It's a blood test. It costs about $25, $30. So it turns out that in 1963, scientists in Scandinavia identified there was something in the blood that had never been found before. It was, without being too technical, an LDL cholesterol particle, and we all have LDL cholesterol, a little bridge, and then a funny arc-like tail. And when you put all that together, it's called lipoprotein a. It carries cholesterol because that's what LDL does. And then this special little bridge has some other nasty creatures that aren't even worth mentioning. But in combination, this molecule in the blood does 3 things. It can cause plaque or blockage because it has the LDL. It can cause the blood to clot because it interferes with our blood thinning system called plasminogen. And it can cause inflammation. It carries these nasty little beasts that cause inflammation. So it's a triple threat. What's the big deal? Because you can inherit it from mom and dad, which means from the day you're born, your blood is rich in this chemical, or you cannot inherit it, but 1 out of every 4 people, 25% of people, that's about 90 million Americans, maybe 1.8 billion people worldwide inherited. It's the most common inherited cholesterol disorder by far. We've studied in my field a different kind of cholesterol disorder that about 1 in 500 people may inherit. This is 1 in every 3 or every 4. And it can lead to, not always, but it can lead to early heart attack, early stroke, early valve problems that could require stenting or bypass surgery or valve replacement or even worse. And it's very common. I see people here in my clinic, doc, I don't get it. I had a heart attack at age 44 and I've been through the tests and, my dad had something similar, but, he wasn't so healthy. I've been healthy my whole life, kind of scared because of my father. Draw the blood test sky high. It answers the question in many people. I'd rather catch you, as I had a patient this week, same story, dad, 45, heart attack, he's 42, been to all the doctors, but he brought his blood work with me and he had a very high level of lipoprotein a. He undoubtedly inherited from his father. But the doctor that drew it didn't really know what it was and didn't really explain it to him 6 years ago. So what you do about it is what the book is about. It's a bit challenging. News alert, whole food plant diet is the right diet for lipoprotein little a. Whether you inherit it or not, it's the right diet.
Does the number come down? Does the number change?
It can come down with a whole food plant diet. It doesn't come down with Lipitor or Crestor. That's the frustration. It does come down with niacin. Some doctors are comfortable with niacin, some aren't, but it can be used. There is a drug in development that will be the big winner if ongoing studies show its safety and its effectiveness, but that's about 4 years away before that's completed. So for now, if you choose to ask your doctor and get it, and you learn that your level is high, you can always reach out and have a consult with me. But just do the whole food plant-based diet, get your sleep, manage your weight, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, don't smoke. There actually is even a little conversation, as a lot of people have heard, the COVID-19 illness can get really nasty if blood clotting complications occur. The Broadway actor Nick Cordero is in a hospital in Los Angeles at age 41, fighting for his life for the last 2 months, largely because of crazy blood clotting that occurs in this disease. It may be lipoprotein little a. That's been a hypothesis that if you happen to inherit it, 1 out of every 4 people, if you get a serious coronavirus infection, it may be the stage for advanced clotting. That's a hypothesis, needs to be tested, but it makes it a very hot topic right now.
All right, we've got some comments, and I'm going to sort of look over here and see.
Holy moly.
Lots of great.
Does anybody know we're doing this? This is live?
Yeah, we are live on Facebook, on
Hi, Mark Zuckerberg.
Cross-posted on your Facebook. We're on Jane's YouTube channel, and we're on Periscope as well. So there was a Jane Unchained comment that said, "What is so bad about meat?" Let me see if I can find the actual comment. Everybody, and let me just take the time to ask everybody, if you find this kind of information, this show valuable, the only way people are going to know about it, besides catching Dr. Kahn and other people talking about it, is to share it. So please share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Let people know about it. Make a comment, because the comments really help the algorithm spread it out to our community. So even if you say just a couple words, that's very helpful.
Right. Hey Doc, #1 internet show in the world. Isn't that the goal?
Hey Doc, what's new in plant-based medicine? And that part of that title is due to you. So I think that's great. What about alcohol? Linda Middlesworth wants to know, does alcohol hurt our hearts?
Yeah, well, you had John Sally, we'd have to call it Hey Jock, but I do take credit for this Hey Doc. Okay, but let me answer the first question. What's so bad about meat? Makes me think about Big Fat Greek Wedding. Isn't that what the name of the show, Big Fat Greek?
The movie.
Yeah, the Big Fat Greek movie.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Big Fat Greek Wedding, where the hunky tall actor tells the Greek family, I don't eat any meat. And I think it's Olympia Dukakis, if I remember, no eat of meat, no eat of meat, you eat of the lamb, as if it's not meat. At any rate, we're allowed a little humor here, at least for now, on social media. What's wrong with meat? If you're starving and you're about to die, food rules go away. I might even say, in the dietary background I grew up with, keeping kosher, if you're about to die, there is flexibility there. Most of us aren't in that situation. We can intelligently choose foods that favor health or favor disease. And all we can say is you're upping the odds. There are vegans that get sick, and there are meat eaters that have a long life, but we got to use all the data and all the trends. And so there are many, let me just say, my favorite nutrition scientist, maybe I'll shock some people, is Walter Longo, PhD at University of Southern California. He has a book called The Longevity Diet. It's a almost exclusively plant-based diet, even though he would cringe if you called him a vegan, because it's based on science, not on any ethical or environmental approach. And he has a way of analyzing nutrition literature. If you took meat and you said, is there any biochemical data that suggests meat promotes aging and disease? There is. It's called the mTOR pathway, the IGF-1 pathway. Won't go into that now. We can talk about it in the future. Is there any epidemiology that the more meat you eat, the more likely you are to get diabetes and heart disease and cancer? Absolutely, there is. Is there any randomized studies? Very few. There are very few randomized studies, because to do that long-term is nearly impossible. Are there short-term randomized studies? that eating meat has a negative impact on something you measure: inflammation, blood sugar, blood vessel health. There are short-term randomized studies. Finally, look at centenarians. This is all Dr. Longo's construct. Look at the blue zones. Are they carnivore-rich societies like Okinawa or Sardinia? Or are they societies that might eat some meat on a holiday and a festival, but very often eat plant-based, plant-forward meals? And when you conclude all that, you can come up with the conclusion: more meat favors more illness, less meat substituted with whole food plant-based favors more health. So that's the meat question. Very briefly, we could go through what's in meat that causes all that, but it does lead to more inflammation, blood sugar rises, and the saturated fat in meat is a major trigger for developing cardiovascular disease. Okay. Question number 2, what was it?
So the other one has to do with Alma powder. So how good is Alma powder for lowering LDL cholesterol, especially for somebody already on following a whole food plant-based lifestyle?
And we have fun here. We call this the dyslexic news show. So it's actually Amla powder, AMLA. Alma is the city.
She wrote it Alma.
Yeah, it's Amla, AMLA. AMLA is the Indian gooseberry. It's a berry. Yes. And somewhere in the world, you probably can buy fresh or dried Indian gooseberries. But when you dry them up and create a powder or a capsule, it's called Amla. It's from the Ayurvedic tradition. And there are several dozen studies, good studies in animals and humans. We'd rather you not do too many animal studies, of course. We're at PCRM, we love our animals and such. But anyways, there is data that Amla can help support lower blood sugar, lower blood cholesterol, and inflammation control. Even some studies that short term, it may help your arteries. Patients who want to try and make advances in their health but don't want to rush to prescription drugs could add in Amla powder or Amla capsules, retest their blood sugar, their blood cholesterol, their artery function, their blood pressure. Do that with your doctor's supervision or your nutritionist supervision. But it's available around. There are some nice organic powders. I don't know if this is okay to say, but just cut me off if not. But the famous duo at Mastering Diabetes, right, Robbie Barbero and Cyrus Kambata, do favor an organic Amla powder. I have it. I add it to my tea. It's bitter. There's a lot of good things that come from bitter foods. Amla is a bitter food, just like bitter melon that you can buy in Indian grocery stores and arugula. Bitter foods cause a reaction that often leads to health. So Amla is one of those. Yeah.
Now, I actually purchased some frozen Indian gooseberries, and they're very sour, and I put them in my smoothies.
Wow, I haven't
done that in a while. Now, I don't know if the powder, I'm wondering if the powder has more of the anti-inflammatory compound than the frozen. I couldn't really get any good information. I tried to research it, but if anybody knows, I'd like to know. We also have a question about the role of vitamin K in reducing heart disease.
Right. So vitamin K originally discovered more than 100 years ago in vitamins, 1930s or so about 100 years ago. Vitamins became a hot topic. Vitamin K comes in 3 versions. Let's just talk about 2. There's vitamin K1, which is involved in blood clotting. If you are deficient in vitamin K1, your blood may not clot as well, and you're more prone to bleeding. But it's also used as a medical treatment because the very popular drug warfarin or Coumadin is a vitamin K inhibitor. It inhibits vitamin K1. And if you have certain heart conditions or blood clotting conditions or blood clots in your lungs, warfarin may be used. That's interrupting the vitamin K pathway. That's good to thin your blood. It's not good for some other things because vitamin K is important for artery health. But vitamin K1 is not too much of a challenge because it's abundant in green leafy vegetables. And what do we love to eat? Green leafy vegetables. So it's uncommon and almost unprecedented for a whole food plant diet follower not to have adequate vitamin K1. Vitamin K2 was only discovered about 40 years ago. It's a variation on vitamin K1, but it's more involved in calcification. So if you want your bones strong, there's been good data. Vitamin K2 is a component of that. And if you want your arteries not to get calcified, aging of arteries causes them to get stiff, hardening of the arteries. More vitamin K2 appears to be a pathway to have younger, more flexible arteries. Famous study in Rotterdam with over 4,000 people. The more K2 in your diet, the less calcified your arteries were, and the lower was the rate of heart attacks and strokes. It wasn't a randomized study. It was an observational study. There's not a great randomized study yet. But there's really only one food really strong in vitamin K2, and it's natto. It's a soy-based paste or food that you can find in Japanese markets or Japanese restaurants as a natto sushi. It's plant-based. It's a rather strong smell and strong flavor that is not very agreeable to many people the first time they're around it, but you can get used to it. I have patients that order frozen natto and love to eat it under the belief it's very good for their heart. There are, of course, also capsules that have vitamin K2, very often combined with vitamin D. So a vitamin D3, vitamin K2 vegan capsule might be quite good for arteries, might be quite good for bone health. Still more science needed. There's actually some data about vitamin K2 and better blood sugar control, vitamin K2 as a anti-cancer in cell culture nutrient. So it's an interesting nutrient, but it's hard to measure. So you don't really measure vitamin K2. You just wonder if you're getting enough.
Well, maybe the future will give us some objective way of measuring that so we can see where we're at. Now, we're getting to the end of our show. I know you have some patients coming in, but I want to ask you one more question, and that has to do with calcium supplements. So many people, especially women, are concerned with osteoporosis, and they're taking calcium supplements. What are the benefits and the risks of calcium supplementation?
Well, I'd rather people do that in small amounts than use dairy as their pathway to get adequate calcium. There's way more downside to high dairy diets than the small benefit that might come from the calcium that's in dairy. And there are so many calcium fortified foods now, calcium fortified plant milks, and plant yogurts and plant sour creams and all. There's really no need to go to the dairy department. You go to the plant-based department if you want to get your calcium in that way. Leafy greens, particularly like Swiss chard, very rich in calcium. Rhubarb, these are some of the tops, but all leafy greens have calcium. There really isn't much concern. However, if a woman has, and I say woman because it could be a man, has been tested with a DEXA scan and told you have osteopenia, somewhat demineralized bones, or osteoporosis, a small amount of calcium every day may be combined with magnesium, may be combined with vitamin K2. There are some micronutrients called boron and strontium that some people recommend for stronger bone structure. But you want to do weight-bearing exercise. That's very efficient. My latest craze is I have a weighted vest.
Yeah.
A lot of them you can change the weights on a day that you're feeling better or a little weaker. But walking with a weighted vest just puts a little more weight on your bones and stimulates a response that's believed to cause stronger bones. I have a crazy workout routine because I have a vibration plate. It's called Power Plate, a whole body vibration. And there's data that it augments bone health, bone strength. It's kind of a cool little workout that I enjoy doing. Some gyms have whole body vibration power plates. So that's kind of fun. There have been a few studies suggesting, what if you take a lot of oral calcium? And the study suggested maybe you're accelerating the aging of your arteries, the calcification of your arteries. It's mixed in terms of the science. So I don't mind a woman who's taking 500 or 600 milligrams of calcium a day under either her own reading or a healthcare provider's recommendation. But sometimes it was, 2 or 3 times that in the past, and that's to be too much. And
there are 1,000 milligram capsules.
Right, all over the place. Right.
Now, is the calcium, now when foods are fortified, like orange juice, for example, and some plant-based milks are fortified with calcium, is that the same as taking a calcium supplement? Because it's elemental calcium?
Yeah, calcium's a mineral, and it's you do have to absorb it. You have to absorb it in your food. You have to absorb it in your supplement. But the form of the calcium is not all that crucial. Just don't overdo it.
Just don't overdo it.
So, and I'm not a fan, again, I'm not a fan of orange juice. I'd rather you eat an orange.
Correct.
Orange juice, just because your blood sugar spike is dramatically different with a whole food.
Well, it doesn't have any fiber. So.
It has been stripped of the antidote to the poison, as some nutritionists say. Not that sugar is a poison, but the orange juice does not have the fiber, so that regulated release into your blood is a whole different beast when you knock down a 12-ounce glass of orange juice.
Right. It came to mind because I know that orange juice is fortified. I like to tell my clients if they just eat the whole food plant-based diet where the calcium originated, where the cows got it from eating plants.
Greens, yeah.
That's the best way to do it, is just to stay to whole food plant-based and stop consuming food that's had the fiber stripped away.
Agree.
So what's new? What's coming up in the future? What do we have to look forward to?
What are our hot trends? I mean, home delivery, not everybody. We've had a strange time, a lot of people cooking at home the last few months, and I hope that trend, is sustained. It's both more economic and far higher quality, but we're going to slip back into rushed lives and going to restaurants. But I love, really high quality home delivery, organic, plant-based companies. It's a real tough business to make $1 at the end of the day. So some have come and some have left, but there's some good ones out there. You've got the chain veggie grill that originated on the West Coast. Now it's on the East Coast. That relatively cost sensitive, fast, fun food that's not completely junk. And there's a lot of good choices at a place like Veggie Grill. That's, no conflict. I'm not an investor. I have my own version in Detroit called Green Space and Go. But, that's a trend we need. It's still, sadly, easier for a family to drag, 3 kids and a husband and wife into McDonald's and walk out, for $23 versus, $73 at a high quality organic plant restaurant. It's unfortunate. And it's all government subsidies. A $5 burger at McDonald's would be $13 if there weren't government subsidies. And it's, not one of the better things our government does is to make poor quality disease causing food inexpensive.
Yes.
So we need more of that. I think those are hot.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking an entire hour of your time to talk with us today. I mean, this is just
this is your inaugural show that's going to win Emmy.
Let me tell you.
When we accept the award, here's your Emmy, Lisa. Karlan. I'm just saying.
Well, actually, let me tell you, I got to tell the audience the truth. When I called you and asked you to be my first guest, you said, "I don't want to be your guest," and you paused. I want to be your co-host. So I'm very happy to tell the audience.
I thought it was a 10-minute show, though. I thought it was a 10-minute show. Now we're.
So you're going to come back as a co-host, maybe once a month?
Yes.
If you can do that, and we'll bring on some other doctors, and we'll give them we will interview them and really bring forth some fabulous information. So I am so honored to have you as my recurring co-host. Thank you so much.
Right. You can't shake me off. It's kind of like shingles. Won't go away. I'll be back.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Give my best to your lovely wife, Karen, and onward. We have a lot of great work to do.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please continue to write comments. We will, and Dr. Kahn will also look at the comments on the Facebook feed and the YouTube feed. If there's something specific, he will respond and I will respond. But thank you so much. Share the feed and we'll say bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
Peace.
Bye.